Scott and Jeff, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Sweet. Let me, I have the agenda. There's not much on this. I think quite you had wanted to do client-side policy discussion.
Sure, we can start. I don't think it's quite ready for like final version, but we can discuss.
The only other thing I had was this question of add-ons. I think I talked to some of people offline, but people are starting to ask what it takes to get into Istio as a default add-on to your system. And I didn't know if this working group had any thoughts on what we should do and what our policy should be and where we should refer people in relation to that question. So
yeah, I'm going to add this to the TOC.
Okay. So other thoughts?
I mean, can it be? Can this working group be the and have a proposal sent to the list, a document?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's certainly reasonable.
So then we take the proposal to steering or TOC or whatever the right form is.
Yes, this is a businessy thing that should go to the steering committee.
Okay.
So what are we referring to? Add-ons, adapters, or?
Yeah.
Well, so like
like
we think of Grafana and Prometheus, they're the sort of out-of-the-box add-ons that come with Istio. Similarly, like the service graph, the little service graph that we send with Istio. So if I wanted to add some other visualization or something like that, a zip can also. How do we decide? And also, like, if we make it out of the box versus just make it available, people that install start to have the same.
Right.
Yeah, I think one guideline we should have is that nothing should be checked into the main Istio repo unless it actually gets built and distributed with the Istio release. Not necessarily part of the default Istio YAML, but if it's something that gets bundled config or Docker images as part of the official release tarball, then it goes in Istio. Otherwise, it shouldn't go there.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Sounds good. So we'll bring it to the TOC and then see what.
Well, is somebody going to write a proposal officially, or what the?
Sure. I'll work on it. Okay. So do you want to talk about the doc on policy enforcement on client side?
Sure. So I wrote a proposal about client side.
Who are you talking to?
Where is the mic?
It should be the phone.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay. So I sent a doc about a week ago about a proposal to do client-side policy enforcement. And the idea being that now that we have a mixer on the client side involved in the sidecar, we can not only collect telemetry, but also perform a check and do more interesting routing decisions. And the proposal is not quite ready because there are quite a few changes necessary all over places. In particular, we need to think how to extend the check output. And that means we need to decide what kind of actions proxy can do on behalf of mixer and what can attributes, and how attributes communicate that to the proxy. Yesterday we discussed actually a bit about it, and there is also a story about how to put the operator into control, because it's not sufficient to just let adapters make decisions. We need to make operator decide to accept those decisions. And so there will be a sort of template or instance in between the adapters and the proxy. And that template instance is essentially what check response looks these days. It's just a Boolean, but it really needs to be a bunch of things that the proxy can do. And the operator can choose what those things are based on the output values of adapters. So the adapters will produce decisions based on what they see in the request bodies, and then the operator puts those decisions using special language into the output for the proxy. So I looked into Envoy and how it does some of the scripting features. So if you don't know, Envoy has a Lua engine, so you can do a lot of things using Lua, and some of the common things that people actually want and use Lua for is just basic HTTP header manipulation. So some of the things like make an HTTP call and then get some value and put it into a header. So this kind of features that should be easily doable with this architecture. That's the low-hanging fruit that we should be able to get.
So is Lua considered fast?
It's fast by scripting language standards because it has a JIT engine. And
yeah, but so people actually are using it in real-world traffic and Envoy. It touches every single request.
So Envoy implementation is a bit not. I mean, it's only been there like 3 months, I think. So it's not quite production. I mean, probably people use it. I don't know how much or how reliably. But in Nginx, there's a well established Lua engine. So it's possible to make it production level. Right, so apart from the change in the metadata, there is also a use case for doing things to the body of the requests and the responses, but that's sort of something that Mixer deliberately doesn't want to be part of as a part of the check workflow. For that, we have another proposal called mediation agent that will allow Mixer to define what to do with the body, so things like transcoding or maybe just looking at the bytes.
Verifying.
Right, or checksumming, all kinds of things you can do by streaming the body, the request. So so what we propose is basically define several attributes that we use to define how to add attributes, how to add the headers or remove headers from the requests. So I haven't quite sketched out the actual check response, how it should look like, but it will look like similar to the route action in Envoy, which is either you add remove headers, or you respond directly with some predefined code and body, or you do rewrite. So it means you choose a different routing decision than what Envoy would do for you.
Or you flush the route.
Do you mean like
So if a routing decision has been made based on certain headers, right? And now if I inject an header, I want to flush the route and ask Envoy to recompute. Now where should it go? Now that some headers have changed, I want you to recompute. So actually that's qualitatively different from like a local-side load balancer, because local-side load balancer will tell you go here, right? It will actually tell you where you're supposed to go. Whereas in this model, we're just changing the inputs, and we're again asking Envoy or the proxy to reevaluate. Okay, based on these new inputs, where do you want to send it?
So that's interesting because currently in Envoy, this mixer filter comes ahead of router filter. So all decisions are always final in terms of routing table, unless you.
No, you can actually flush the.
Right, there is a loophole which is to retrigger this whole process once again.
Yep.
So that's also an option. Probably.
Yeah. But I think the difference there is that exactly that Mixer is not actually making the decision send it here because it may not know what the deal is. It's making changes to headers and maybe I don't know what else it can make changes to, maybe some metadata perhaps, right? And then I'm just asking again for Envoy or the proxy to revalidate, saying, okay, now with this information, where should it go? So for example, we may have a route rule that says, based on certain groups, right, send this information to this particular cluster. Well, that group isn't available yet. So first time it evaluates, that route is not going to be selected. and Mixer will be able to inject that header, and now it's available, and now it will say, yeah, okay, now I need to go forward. So there is still a separation of concern between what Mixer does and what.
Yeah, so I was thinking how to do it in the. I mean, I think by default we should basically do our decision before Envoy makes a decision. So we can select, for example, the different URI or path for prefix of virtual host, and then let Envoy do the actual routing.
The problem there is we don't even know really the service context at that point, right? Because for example, if we let Envoy make the initial decision.
Oh no, I'm saying not make Envoy make initial decision. There's no decision yet. You just have a request that comes. There's no decision made on behalf of Envoy. Then Mixer manipulates request, and then subsequently the Envoy makes a decision.
But then Mixer manipulates the request based on what? How like we haven't even established a context, right? Normally there is a service context, and Mixer works in that service context, saying that's the service. Now I want to change some things based on that.
So I got two questions and an issue with this. So first, in the current world, when we are applying our policies, are we aware of the version selection that the proxy has made?
Yes, we are.
So there's an attribute?
No. We don't know. At the check time, we don't know about it.
We do because
there's no attribute.
That's exactly. So we do because the upstream cluster has already been selected, and the cluster encodes all this information. So we actually do know that. That's why I said it's important that be done. Right? We actually know that upstream cluster service 1 v1 is selected. We already have that information by the time even a client-side check is called. We don't make use of it today, but it's available.
Okay, so then this implies then that if there's a client-side check, so we do the routing, the routing choice, call Mixer. Mixer says, oh, there's new attributes.
Yep.
Reevaluate. Might need to call Mixer again. Yeah. Because the information has changed.
Because something has changed, yeah.
Okay.
Potentially you don't do that forever.
Yeah, potentially forever if you're
We don't do that forever.
Interesting.
Yeah, there is also a problem of managing resources in the proxy that we can reference to, because unless Envoy knows about the upstream cluster, we can't route it. We do need some kind of coordination if you want the ultimate flexibility. Like if Envoy does not know about the existence of some service because it was decided that configuration has been scoped, so it just doesn't have any knowledge about it, then Mixer cannot route it. And so we have to have a way to combine one configuration for pilot saying, make this service visible, and then use that service in the Mixer.
Right.
So it might be necessary to do some coordination.
Right. I think, but even so, even if we inject the upstream cluster header, right? Like Envoy gives you a way to just set the upstream cluster directly, and then Envoy will just honor whatever that is. And that gives you the truly look-aside load balancing behavior, right? You ask someone, you stick the header, and then doing that outside of a service context means that Mixer will have to know a lot about. I mean, like how do you set a cluster? You actually have to go through the whole routing at that point, right? So I think it's important that the service context be set. Like someone has made the decision that these requests, like this request, should generally belong to this service, and then within that context we can make like small.
Yeah, so to be clear, Mixer is about enforcing service level policies.
Right.
And until we've identified a service, we don't know what policies to enforce. That's what it boils down to. So, and perhaps given the source, when talking to service X, oh, well, sorry, we don't want you to talk to service X. Policy says you should go to service Y.
Right. So yeah, the regional information has to come from the routing table in Envoy.
Yeah.
But mean, you do have to have all the information that, at least for the incoming request, not necessarily what Foxy would do, but at least Foxy should recognize that this request comes to this certain destination, certain source, but you should have a way to override the decision that Envoy would make, because we cannot be limited by just a table that's in Envoy. It just limits us to the rules that are available by pilot. So in the end, we have to have a mechanism to override the upstream cluster, and that means we need to understand what the upstream clusters are in Mixer.
Right, but exactly that's okay. I mean, that's the part that I think is like a qualitative jump, right? Like knowing all the upstream clusters in Mixer is something that we don't do today.
Well, we only need to know the name. We don't need to know what it is. We just need to know how the service is mapped to the upstream cluster. So we can select a service at the Mixer level and just translate that into the cluster at Envoy level inside Mixer filter.
Well, maybe we're at the wrong level of abstraction.
Yeah.
Is there something slightly higher that the Mixer could be focused on?
Well, but that's the thing, right? Like if Mixer just changes headers and then leaves the decision back to Envoy saying, okay, well, in this new world of the request has changed, now reevaluate it, and then Mixer doesn't need to know upstreams, right? Mixer just changed some, set the group attribute, and now it should go some other place. It wasn't going there before.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues is that the routing table in Envoy is partitioned by port or something, so you don't even have access to all services unless it's the same port.
Right, so you're already constrained, but that's good, right? I think, well, at least the way I look at it, I think that's good. You're already constrained in kind of the breadth of decisions that you can make, and now we're trying to say, okay, within this service, because do we want Mixer to say that it's
mediation engine, right? I mean, that's one of the use cases to reroute the traffic to some agent, which is a completely different thing, not in the table.
So for mediation engine specifically, you set upstream to whatever you want.
Yeah, so I think we're mixing abstraction levels here. If I want to say, look, traffic's coming in and it's about to go to service A, I want it to go to service B, the Mixer should just say service B, and not the container or the cluster or whatever is associated with that. And so the initial request coming out of the client was doing a DNS lookup to service A, and we need to replace that with do another DNS lookup for service B, and rerun all that logic.
Right. So I think Mixer should not understand clusters. They should use just services, but something has to eventually translate it to what Envoy uses to denote that.
Correct. Well, but that's the thing. So Envoy gets as input from the service. You get service A. So we just need to say, oh, well, ignore all the work you've done for service A and now do it for service B instead. Right, so you need to go back to reevaluate everything. So pretend that the service sent service B as a destination. The client sent service B as a destination. So then the whole evaluation pipeline gets redone. You might call Mixer again.
Oh, so that part is not yet possible in Envoy. So what is possible is you can flush the route and it is recomputed based on the new information. But it's not going to rerun all the filters again. So, which is why I was saying that the decision is already constrained, and if Mixer makes decision within that constraint, then it works. If Mixer makes a completely different decision, well, you could argue that Mixer should have already made there is no need to consult Mixer again, because heck, you just consulted Mixer. Like if service G,
composition,
right? So making it compositional is not possible yet in Envoy because it's not going to rerun the filter. So for example, if there are certain unrelated filters to us, right? Let's say there is a blow filter that already called, that already had a side effect. When we flush the route, it's not going to rerun that filter. And maybe that filter has some conditional logic based on is destination A denied, right? Yeah. Now we bypass that. Now, that's only because Envoy doesn't support it. I don't know if it's a fundamental thing they don't want to support. We can find that out. But like, at least as it stands right now, the filter chain is already ended. And you have this last one chance to force Envoy to recompute the destination. That's it.
Can we be the first one?
Well, we are the first one, actually. We are the first one to change things, but we have other ones who can also change things.
Yeah.
We have side effects on the place.
Oh, first and last. We keep.
Yeah.
So if you just want to manipulate header and change the service, you can also always change the header, the host header, that essentially rewrites it to be another service. But that still limits you to whatever host headers are available on the same table, and that's not all of them.
Correct.
So in the end, we still need to rewrite.
Otherwise, actually, it would result in a 404.
Right, which is not desirable.
If your listener doesn't even include those hosts, if you try to rewrite it, it's going to say, okay, now I don't know.
Okay, so to do what I was saying, then we would need another filter that's sitting at that is the first guy. That gets called, say, okay, somebody's saying they want service A, and they'll map that service B, and then run everything else after.
Can't Mixer do it inside? I mean, somehow the check produces different requests and rerun the check inside Mixer, and then.
Yeah. So I think that's what I meant when I said that Mixer, if it is saying send it to service B, well, it should only give that decision if that's allowed, right? Like it's already Mixer. Like we're already inside Mixer. We should give the right decision. We shouldn't just say go there and then find out, oh, actually that's not allowed. Well, no.
Right.
Just give the right decision.
Yeah, probably it should be in final. Like
so we don't need to call Mixer again. We can see to it that that's true. But we don't know what other filters did and whether they had any conditional logic that is just like things were changed underneath them now, right? There is a law filter that says if destination is service B, stop, or I don't know, something like that.
But isn't that a fundamental problem with any filters? Right? By definition, they don't know what's going down, what's coming after, and if the operator doesn't order the filters properly or whatever, I don't know how that's configured, but it's always a fundamental problem.
So
if somebody comes after the Mixer filter and decides to route something somewhere else, well, they just screwed up our off checking.
That is a fundamental problem, and that's why it's sort of adapter kind of model where people make a choice. Who they trust.
Which decides first? Who decides
first and who decides last? It's actually already an issue of the fault in Mixer trying to be the first ones and not always cooperating.
Yeah. So maybe it's not a problem. Look,
so Mixer just sets the.
Actually, no. But if you're saying we just can't send it to arbitrary IP addresses because the proxy is already kind of.
No, so we can. I mean, if we directly set the upstream cluster and somehow figure out, somehow, let's say that we are able to set the upstream cluster, which we kind of can, then we can set it up such that we will send it there. Like Mixer will say, it doesn't matter what the route tools say, send it to this upstream cluster, and Envoy will do it.
We just need a little bit of an understanding of the cluster name is relative to the.
Yeah, we need to understand. So we need coordination between,
by we meaning,
coordination between Mixer and Pilot of how cluster names are generated. When we move from cluster names to subsets, we need to know.
Right. I mean, it's just a collection of endpoints.
Right. But and finally, you still want to leave the decision of choosing an endpoint back to the proxy, which this will.
Well, except one case when you can allow DNS lookup is the direct cluster, which for things that are outside of the cluster, if you want to route to them, there's still a certain cluster in Envoy, which is always just passing through things.
This has got to compose though, right? So if traffic is going to service A, then Pilot's got a bunch of rules to decide, depending on the headers, and it's going to version 1 versus version 2. And now Mixer is saying, okay, ignore that. I want you to send this traffic to B. There still needs to be the same rules in proxy that say that it's B version A, version 1, or version 2. But that logic still needs to happen somewhere.
That's why you have a choice. You don't have to override the cluster. If you don't override and just change them.
Yeah, just the headers, then it will revalidate the routes and it will send it to.
Okay, so that part is done. The only part that doesn't work is filters ahead of us won't get rerun.
No, the part that we're talking is more about what if there is no rule saying send it to version 2 and you want to use it in the mixer. So do you want to first push a rule to Pilot to decide that and then coordinate with that?
Right. So that's the coordination between.
Okay, so that I think is a prime example of something we can do much better once we have Galley. So the user is going to be talking in terms of abstract, I want this behavior to happen. And Galley is going to decide, to do that, I need to send this state to proxy and this state to mixer. And the user doesn't need to understand that there's...
Yes, okay. I think, yes, but we can still decide on the model, right? So, for example, one model is that deciding upstream cluster, which I'm kind of mildly against, because that breaks that abstraction. However, Mixer can inject new headers and then again leave it to proxy to reroute. If we maintain that abstraction, if we maintain that separation, then yes, then we can actually have a top level thing that says, you want to do it in this particular way, you want to do it based on group. Okay, that means there is a Mixer adapter that needs to compute the group and send it back. And the route rules are the route rules which will route based on a group header or group information. And then still Mixer is not directly saying send it to this upstream cluster. Mixer is still doing its normal thing of injecting new information, and then proxy is going to just reevaluate.
Okay, so if you want to send something to some random IP address,
then you have to have that random rule. Yes, you have to have that rule that says under these conditions, send it to this random thing.
And that condition is set by Mixer.
And condition is set by Mixer.
Yeah, so that's a reasonable composition. And then, except for the fact that when you do this, you still might screw up upstream of the filters. So for the same reason that we
filters within us can do whatever they want. We have no control over that.
We don't really control that. They all have side effects, so we can't. Yeah, so that's, I guess that's
too bad.
Yeah, too bad.
So,
where do metrics get collected by Envoy in the scheme? At the end or at the beginning or throughout?
At the outside data path.
Yeah.
Once it sends out, it will send asynchronously.
So there are like upstream metrics which are collected like after all this is done. Like when it's about to send things out, and you're no longer going to make any decisions or change any decisions of where things go. That's when it will say, okay, now actually send it to upstream, and then upstream code will collect all the upstream.
Okay, so as we're looking at metrics for the proxies metrics, they're going to look reasonable.
Yes, they will say where the data was at, where it actually ended up, which is kind of So it will actually show. I guess the traces will definitely show that it went from here to the intermediary to the next guy.
Okay, so with this model now, the only thing the Mixer would do would be influence the headers.
Correct.
Is there a leakiness problem in that these headers will now reach the target service?
So yes and no, but again, right, without doing anything new, we can configure that rule that strips out the headers. So you can always do remove headers, but there is no magic there, right? Like we are not. So I think what we shouldn't normally do is have these instructions encoded in Mixer responses. Like, Mixer is going to respond with, okay, these are
if Mixer just says add this header, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'd rather not that header not hit the target service.
Right. So there are certain headers called like internal headers, right, which are sanitized.
You can have the same type of header, which we call sanitized XHR.
Yeah, exactly. We can have some XHRs which are sanitized as well, and then they will not reach the target.
Okay, so when we thinking about this over the last year, in my mind, what you're calling header, I was calling attributes.
Correct.
And they'd be outside of the header space, and we'd have to augment the pilot syntax to be able to understand these attributes.
Yep.
So you can express match rules using these attributes.
Yep. But if we map it back into header space, right? But we can actually namespace the headers, right? We can have X, or something, right? I think we achieve basically the same effect. And if we sanitize it as well, then we already have a context that flows through the system, right? Which is headers, without introducing something new.
So
it's not typed.
Well, yes, it's not typed. Yeah. But why didn't we do that for Mixer? All data coming from the proxy is just new headers, and we just get just get one single big ass map of everything.
Not always headers. Telemetry especially.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that is not headers, which is what counts.
No, we're sending a bunch of attributes which are key value pairs. That's what the headers are. Yeah. All of our attributes could be encoded as headers.
Yeah, I think that's well. They're not typed again.
But we could have done the same thing, right? Like for these keys, assume this type and extract it.
Yeah.
So why the asymmetry? I should do it one way.
Why the asymmetry of what exactly?
Why using attributes on the way down, but using request headers on the way up?
Oh, because the proxy doesn't understand attributes. It does understand headers. I don't think there's actually asymmetry, right?
The proxy, if you look at, I don't know the latest routing rules, but the routing rule 6 months ago, the names used in there, there's some stuff you can match against that looks like attributes.
Yeah, but it's not. It's
not anymore.
The intent was like we made these names match so it looks like you're matching against attributes. Just in the proxy, you have only 4 attributes that are currently.
Well, the thing is they're matched at different points, right?
Yeah.
So the source-based routing, which kind of looks like you're actually matching on the data path, is actually not being matched on the data path. It's being matched statically beforehand.
Yeah.
So yeah, visually it looks similar, but it's actually not. So the things that you can match, like you can base a routing decision on, are like, is there anything other than headers?
All these payloaders, which is specific to gRPC.
Destination, I thought there was destination service.
Yeah, but that's header, right? Like that's all.
No, it's not. That's actually not quite a header. I mean, it should communicate as a header, but maybe not destination service. Because how do you output TCP stuff from HTTP, and like it's some problem of the
TCP
protocol.
is a whole other thing. No, but let's say for HTTP, is there anything else other than headers that you can make decisions on?
No, I looked around. I mean, it's really just request response header manipulation.
Yeah. But there's not destination service? It's not a thing you match on?
You can match, but what do you mean to output destination service? I mean, what should policy do if you say destination service equal X?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah, it's actually matching header, like the authority or the host header with whatever.
The only way I can know to communicate is just write upstream cluster to be whatever X corresponds to. That's the only way you can actually execute that instruction in the proxy.
I mean, the proxy does stuff with TCP traffic.
Yeah, but they're not mixed. So like, how do you go from HTTP to TCP or TCP to HTTP? No,
that's not what I'm saying. Like, if I can express routing rules on TCP traffic, and it's not based on request headers.
It's based on very limited number of things, like TCP port.
Yeah, but the point is that the syntax for these things looks as attributes. It's not request headers. It's specifically something different.
Yeah.
And if in our model that we have these things that are expressed in config that the mixer manipulates as attributes, but when you look at it in the proxy, it's request headers. It just seems inconsistent. Especially, or in addition, I want Mixer to be able to influence routing decisions for TCP traffic.
Yeah.
Not just HTTP. So I think we need some side channel of some sort to communicate this shit down the, this stuff down the pipeline that the proxy is using instead of, so some side channel within the filter chain instead of smuggling all this stuff in request headers.
But again,
those are two different use cases. I mean, it's still on header manipulation, despite if you don't want to change any routing, you just want to have headers.
Yeah, so header manipulation is a fine thing to do.
for HTTP.
Just in general, yeah, for HTTP. But there are specific other things we want to do, such as changing the route. That right now we're just proposing, well, let's just use request headers because it's a convenient way to convey that, but it's really not request headers because we want to elide them before sending them to the destination. We're trying to use request header as a side channel communication mechanism between filter phases, filters.
Correct.
And that just doesn't work when you don't have request headers, number one.
Okay.
And number two, it creates a user model that's confusing. And what if that magic request header is set by the caller from the outside?
No, that's why you got sanitizer.
Yeah. So you need to sanitize on the way in and on the way out.
But Envoy already supports that. Okay. So Envoy already says, yeah, what's sanitized and what's not. Right. So like that part Envoy will do. So I kind of see your point regarding TCP, but the specific question there is, what type of routing can we even do with TCP? Like with TCP, the only thing that it seems you can do is just set the upstream. Like just change the upstream and set it to something. Like what else is there in TCP that you can do that will change the decision? What is that?
So you're looking at the you can base rules based on the origin of the traffic, for example.
Okay.
It's coming from that cluster or that cluster. I want to send it to a different destination.
Okay.
I want different quotas for that the quotas don't matter.
And time of day, use this service, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can
User identity of the caller that's been authenticated in some way. I want to send these users to that.
No, but my question is, when you send it back,
when Mixer talks back,
how do you communicate that?
How do you communicate, and how does Envoy use that information? Like what information does it use? Are you going to change the source IP?
Not the source IP, the destination IP.
Well, you can change the source IP and then ask Envoy to reevaluate. Okay, well, where does this go now, right?
The source IP.
It's just another.
No, I don't think it doesn't really make sense.
I mean, okay, what else can you change?
Primarily the destination IP, the destination port, maybe whether this communication is encrypted or not encrypted.
Right. So the port and the service is really just upstream.
Yeah, it's all encapsulated in upstream. So that's what I'm saying. Like it seems that the only thing you can change is just give the decision back to saying send it there. Whereas on HTTP side, it's actually more nuanced because we set new headers, and now it can actually reevaluate based on rules. But on HTTP side, there isn't much. I just don't see what is there to do.
Correct. So I agree. I think it's mostly about picking a new destination, and I think the same exact logic can apply for HTTP. And then for HTTP, on top of that, you also can edit headers. There's separable concerns. Because you're just proposing editing headers as a means to communicate between between stages of processing in the proxy.
Right.
That goes against composition aspect again, right? Because if you let Mixer override decision to select destination, then file does not participate at all. It's really just Mixer saying stop routing and just send it there.
Well, yeah.
Do you think it's an okay kind of thing to do? Because I mean, it's doable. I can figure out to do it. It's just
so Mixer is not operating in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
The user has configured Istio, and through some configuration of Istio, it led to the fact that Mixer is the one to make that decision in that case. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the options I was thinking about. We probably would not use upstream terminology anywhere in Mixer. So the translation happens somewhere like below, just before it gets sent to proxy or as a proxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's reasonable. I mean, this is exactly the X upstream cluster variety. So
Yeah.
wanted to use. So another thing was it's the buffering aspect. So there's some case when you want to look at the like for example, if you just want to count the bytes in the request and inject a header based on that. But there's now an option needed to selectively choose whether to buffer the whole thing or not to buffer.
Who did the byte counting?
So the filter can decide whether it wants to sit and wait for the whole byte to arrive or just let it go.
Yeah.
So that's something I don't know if we actually thought about it at all before, but it comes up.
So that seems like another thing that the proxy could control, the mixer can control. Based on my analysis of the data, please.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably part of the response is whether to sit and buffer or not. But then again, the problem is that if you do want to do something like inject a header, then you need another check request. So this decision has to be before you make a check call.
So there's cases where either we need to call mixer multiple times, or we just need to say, look, this feature would not support that.
It could be, yeah. But yeah, it's a common case, so I was wondering. And yeah, there's also we probably need to monitor check responses. To audit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely. So we have a item that says we have to be able to audit why a particular request was denied.
Mm-hmm.
So which adapter denied it and like why it was denied, and then yeah.
So where does that happen inside Mixer? Or?
Oh, that happens. Well, that happens nowhere right now. It's in some log somewhere. We actually need to do. We need to do it properly.
Which is what? What do you think? How do we?
So we have to have an audit. We have to have a proper audit log entry generated by Mixer, like specifically for checks, that says this request was denied for this reason.
And what's an audit log entry?
I mean, it looks like an access log entry, but it's more like specifically.
Yeah, it needs to say what's configured,
Yeah,
what rule matched,
and also, but we don't have generally the concept of an audit log in Istio.
Yeah, we don't. What's the backend for the audit log?
I think. Well, that's
you have to go through the normal one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, typically audit log is going to be sent to a system which is more dependable than just like queuing things. So it would be a different destination, but the protocol is probably the same. It's not like
it's just a different configured handler for logging. I mean, like.
It's a fail close or a fail open.
It's not. It is different, right? Because it's not a handler for logging. Because wait, which handler? Do you mean adapter or?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, so if you want this to go somewhere, where is it going to go? Right. And if it's going to go somewhere that's controllable, it needs to go through an adapter, right?
So okay, we can make that Istio to Istio thing work. But the requirement here is that think of an access log, right? Like a normal proxy's access log. After the request is done, we dump it out somewhere of what happened to this request while it was traversing this process. That's what we want to record.
Yeah.
Which is different than access log entry. Access log entry records what happened from the customer. From the client perspective. Here we want to record this request came in with like these attributes or for whatever the inputs were, and it was denied because this adapter said no. So wherever we record that,
all of that fundamentally different than the reasons given for 503s in Envoy access logs, right?
No,
things like no route.
Exactly. No. That is, in fact, it is identical to Envoy access. It is exactly that, except it's kind of more nuanced, because it actually is going to say this. So if Envoy access log said this filter said this, that's why I'm denying it, right? Like at that level of granularity. Yeah, I mean, audit log is just access log with some more specific information as to if someone asks, why is my request being denied? Then you go to the audit log and say, yeah, it was denied because that adapter said no, and then you can say, well, okay, why did that adapter say no? And that's someone else's problem now. Like, you don't have an account, and in this system, which is why
we just need a way to record correlations, like the ID used for the configs, for the request, and all that to be dumped somewhere.
Yeah. So it's an access log for Mixer itself, which is additional information, which is again slightly different than the report access log, right?
Okay, and is it acceptable to just have that be a local log, just stand it out, and then depend on somebody scraping those logs? Because it's there now.
Right.
Potentially, yes.
As long as it's not dropped.
As long as it's not dropped.
So the information is there now. We just perhaps need to annotate it to make it more recognizable. Maybe the log entries now the log entries now feature the name of the scope that was used to generate that log entry. We've added audit scope.
Correct.
And now it's trivially discoverable in the existing log streams.
I think
the request ID is really just a scope. If you just
no. This is
like if you turn on auditing.
Yeah. If you just turn on audit logging, then we should just get that log. That will have request ID as well, because we need to correlate it to something like some actual request at the back. Yeah. So request ID, destination service,
and the config,
and some config ID, and some other configurable things. Like just like an access log is programmable today for our access log.
So what I'm saying is, like, this goes into the same stream as all the other things, but you can pull it out as this is from the audit system.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
We can in Mixer config. We don't have one yet, but at some point we'll have a Mixer config with generic stuff that said, okay, for this Mixer, this is the sprint test template or something to
for the audit log. Yeah. I mean, we have that mechanism for our current audit log implementation, right? So I think all the mechanics are there. Just the purpose and information contained in it is different. That's all, right? Like the report is not recording the denial unless it starts recording detailed denial. Will that just fix the problem right away?
The report is not, so the Mixer itself is not returning information in the check response about this.
Correct.
So it can't be passed back.
Right. So if Mixer starts responding with why it was denied, but is that leaking information? That's probably leaking.
No, it is leaking.
Yeah.
Should be internal.
Yeah. So Mixer shouldn't send that out all the way. Mixer should just maintain it and write it to disk. That's probably better. And so then you can use the same code, but it has to be a separate adapter.
There was an issue from a long time ago about stripping error information coming out of Mixer.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've ever done anything about that. You guys know what's coming out of Mixer for check failures?
Well, the issue was that the Mixer client was just wrapping that stuff and passing it back.
Yeah.
I don't know the state of the client in terms of that.
Okay, but even Mixer shouldn't do this.
I don't know about that. If I make a request, shouldn't I be able to get
it? It should be like middle ground.
Yeah.
PI should be raised, but like the detail should be sufficient to know why it failed, but not.
Yeah. So I think what it was doing was the adapter is setting an error string, and that's just what ends up getting sent up out of Mixer, which means it's up to the adapter to not put PII there, which is maybe too difficult.
Not that. I mean, I have the same problem internally.
Yeah. But even if you we do need to have better error reporting, but we still have to pass some explanation back on failure.
So does this
The
just mean
client
that,
shouldn't then just forward that on to the users, right?
Shouldn't that just be a gRPC error code? Like that should imply like 403, 404.
No, but it doesn't say
non-permission.
who said 403. The thing is, basically, most mixer errors are, permission denied.
Mhm.
That's not, I mean, basically, you're asking, should I do it? And if you say no, that's like one error code really that you have. Mostly. Yeah, one bit. But yeah.
It'd be nice if that you like ran out of your request
Yeah,
quota. or
Right.
something,
Like, what was the reason for the failure? Because the whitelist said no. Is it LDAP? What? Like, why?
okay, so I'm a little confused now. So I think all that is true. So what information is okay to leak out that Mixer should return to proxy? And why is that any different, or should it be any different than what the proxy returns to the client? Assuming that all the information is in the log, in Mixer's log.
So I think, yeah. There's going to be a couple more things of this, but I'm not going to have access to the Mixer logs.
You as the service operator.
As a client.
Yeah, correct.
So the information can't just live in the logs unless those logs are somehow made available to me.
Okay, but as a service operator, you're going to see the sidecar, the logs from the sidecar that's used there. Yeah, so you can see the errors there. Oh, yeah, that's believable.
I think we should just let adapters set the response code, the response message that is okay to share.
Yeah, so that's what that's the way it is now. I think I have to go.
Yeah, I mean, right, and that we should trust adapters properly.
Well, yeah, I think the only trust we can do is either we trust it or we erase it completely. There's no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
So the only weirdness, right, is like if I make a request to product page and the response I get is like some service I didn't know about is not in whitelist I didn't know about, right? Like that's not a useful response at the user level of consuming the web page, right? Like it just needs to be that product page is not available or something. Like there has to be some translation between like Mixer can't work for this particular request, but the upstream request is not.
I don't know. So Stackdriver can authenticate. Stackdriver adapter can authenticate with Stackdriver backend, and or whatever. Somebody that does a check, synchronous thing. How does that come in? Like, I'm torn here because it's easy to return. I'm sure there's a code to say unauthenticated or something, and just return that, and it says no value to the user. Am I unauthenticated? Right. No. Like, what's the middle ground here of what can we return that's meaningful? Who decides it's meaningful? When does this decision happen?
Yeah. I mean, you have to think through scenarios, but right? Yeah, like I don't care that your service, like if I'm calling Sunny's service and he calls Quat service that calls Martin service, I don't care if Quat service can't talk to your service because ultimately all I care about is I'm not getting my thing. And if you tell me, well, Quat can't talk to Martin, I don't know who those are and like why they're not talking to each other.
Yes,
but that is not like that's not helpful to me.
So I think the traditional way to solve this would be through how we encapsulate errors. Right? Something failed at the bottom. Oh, unable to authenticate : low-level error, and then the guy above says, oh, can't talk to product page : all these or lower-level errors. And so hopefully by the time you hit the top, the topmost error message is what's meaningful to you. But if you keep looking after the colon, you get deeper and deeper and deeper.
And maybe that debug information isn't available outside of some scope.
So maybe you stop at a certain set of colons.
Yeah, so that's the problem with endpoints too. So when endpoint user calls endpoint service, they might just get out of quota, whatever their code.
Actually, I know that code.
Yeah, and then sometimes they're like, I don't know what's going on. And then somebody internally who has access, when he does the same command, he gets a huge call stack which actually has detailed information. Then you just communicate to that guy. So if you can bubble up, filter, but I think that's a pretty common problem, not just specific to us.
Yeah, it's classic issue.
It'd be nice if we can solve it.
So we need like at least guideline so adapters can know what to write in error messages.
Oh,
There's always like theme day.
Me also, does anyone on the conference call want to raise any issues or ask any questions before we
Go for it.
go silent? Okay.
There's one meta issue that I want to raise. Do we need to have a 1 hour meeting every week, or can we drop it to every other week, like some other work groups have done?
I'm fine with whatever.
You seem to fill up the time, though.
I mean, that's true with meetings, though. Meetings do tend to fill up time, but
I think half an hour.
the thing is, like, if there are things, so the other approach, which I think what networking group does, is they have it scheduled. It's on the calendar, but if agenda is not set the day before, then it's canceled.
Yeah, and I've been doing that for API management.
Okay, yeah. So either we do that or just drop to once every 2 weeks, which is what some others do. Yeah.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
So why don't we send that out on the mailing list and see what responses and.
Okay. All right. So
we also probably want to look at, do we always want to meet at this time? Right? Like, this might not be friendly to people in different time zones. So it's something else I want to think about. Okay. All right, I'm stopping. Bye, everyone.
Bye.